Welcome to the Greg Struss Show. I'm Greg Struss, coming to you almost live and direct here from Cable Television City in the west side of Chicago, and I'm grateful that you're tuning in wherever you are and taking some time out of your busy day to catch what's going on here. And once again, thank you for tuning in. You know, a lot of things have been happening. We've been hearing a lot about race because there's a political season, right? There's an election in Chicago going on with the mayor. Things that have been going on in the news with Jussie Smollett, R. Kelly, and high-profile African-American people during Black History Month. And it's kind of sad because tonight I want to talk about lying and having empathy for the liar. Now, I'm not saying that the folks that I just mentioned are liars, all right, but it is looking that there's some major storytelling going on, some major damage repair going on, and of course, self-victimization going on. Now, here's the thing about being a victim, all right? When someone's a victim of a crime that occurred, it's real, right? And the victimization is the person that has either suffered at the slings of the criminal or the person that has committed the crime. So there's victimization in that. That's real, being a real victim, okay? Self-victimization is victimization that is created when I myself have created that I've created that so-called being a victim of something, all right? Whether it's something I say, it is behavior related, okay? It's something that I did to myself to commit me being a victim. Now, we see this a lot in addiction, and we also see it sometimes in the recovery process. And in the recovery process, we start accepting responsibility for our behavior and what we've done to others, but also what we've done to ourselves. So that self-victimization is no longer going to play a role in my getting well. And this is why a lot of people relapse, because why? They have the inability, or in AA, people talk about the constitutional incapable of, their constitution is incapable of accepting certain things. So getting rid of that self-victimization means that I have to be accountable for who? Me. And also my behavior. What comes into behavior? Behavior is the way that I act, but also the things that I say. So we've talked about this over the course of the last few shows about, are my words matching my behavior? So how does that play into my self-victimization or getting well? So we talk about R. Kelly. We're going to be talking about him tonight. We're also going to be talking about Jussie Smollett. And the truth, because I looked at Jussie's, I've been following this. It seems like the Chicago media has treated this like a crime, and the national media has treated this like some kind of a political spectacle, that it's because of President Trump that people, that there's so much racism in America. And I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. I am no longer going to buy it, because you know what? I live with black people, I live around Chinese people, I live around people from India, people from the Middle East, and you know what? Everybody's respectful. So I'm not buying it. I think that there is more at play here. Why? Because if we can have hate sells. If there's no controversy, Jerry Springer would have never beat Oprah for a period of time. If there wasn't some kind of crisis going on that brought people together to, I feel for that underdog because that happened to me. And because it's happening on TV, it's real. I don't think so. I think it does exist in some places, but let's face it, the true meaning of equality is that everybody is created equal, including me as a Caucasian man in his 50s, all right? If someone in a position on the news is replaced by an African American and then replaced by a Caucasian male, that's racism. It's, because that's not the way it is. Never mind that person may be able to connect with an audience just as well, if not better, and in doing so increase the ratings for that particular show or broadcast. Now, I'm not going to buy this racism talk. And people will say, well, it's because you're white that you're not buying the racism talk. Look, I am so full of, I don't want to say that I'm resentful at this point in time. I'm kind of entertained by it. I looked at what Spike Lee said in his speech on the Academy Awards. I don't watch those shows anymore because you know what? I feel like people are talking down to a certain segment of America. And I don't feel that way. I don't feel that way. I don't feel that I've oppressed people. I don't feel that I've been given any special privileges. I think that when people, maybe I have the gift of being able to communicate, okay? That when I get pulled over by the police, I say, "Good evening, officer," and I roll the window down. And they're like, "What's going on?" And I talk to them as human beings and admit fault. And I'm like, "Look, if you got to write the ticket, you got to write the ticket." Not breaking bad, not having attitude, and not playing the potential victim. I accept that, I must have done something, either slid through a stop sign or didn't put my turn signal on, and they have a job to do. That's how I look at it. So I want to talk about that a little bit tonight, and a solution for how to speak with the police when I'm pulled over, whether I'm black, whether I'm white, whether I'm Chinese, Hispanic, Arabian, whatever it is. It's universal. And I think that being polite is universal. It has nothing to do with race. My behavior has to do with me as a human being, not my race or the color of my skin or the religious beliefs or what have you. And I want to talk about that as well tonight. Full show tonight about a lot of topics. Okay, we're going to talk about the Jussie Smollett, the race baiting that's going on, and also having empathy for the liar or the person that is the abuser, right? Just because somebody is an abuser doesn't mean I can't have empathy for them on a human level. Not to say that I support them, but to say that I have empathy that they have a problem that needs to be addressed, and hopefully lead them in that direction if I have contact with them. Anyway, I'm Greg Struss. This is the Greg Struss Show, reinventing community television here from the west side of Chicago. Thank you for joining us, and we'll be back in just a moment.
This is our last week. This is our last show ever.
Get out of here.
This is our last show. And I hope that next week our guests show up. And until then, thank you all for the birthday greeting. And it's emotional as I...
This is the Greg Struss Show. I'm Greg Struss. Thank you for tuning in, and we're talking about a lot of things tonight. We're going to talk about the truth, okay, which we touched on a little bit last week. The truth only has one element, and it's the truth, okay? Storytelling involving two people have three sides, right? We have this person's side, that person's side, and then the truth. So the truth never lies. However, people can spin it to make themselves sound what? Truthful, when in fact they're not fully truth. I remember my father telling a sister of mine that she speaks with a forked tongue, and it really wasn't until I got into my 40s and went back and, associated with family on a daily basis, that I really realized that what is that forked tongue? That forked tongue, like a snake, okay, because the snake has like those little forks and there's that opening in the middle. The forked tongue has a way of spinning instead of just being truthful and saying, you know what, I did it. And I don't feel good about it. I'm ashamed of myself. I'm guilty. And now the healing can start. No, I'm going to continue to tell, weaving the tail or the spin, because the spin protects me, but really people can smell through the BS. And this is what I found out about one of my siblings, is that there was a certain grandmother that, they didn't care for. And I really realized it wasn't until, again, that I was older, had known my grandma, Grandma Struss, Grandma Peacock Struss, who had skin cancer at 80 and literally had one of her nostrils, I don't know, she had like skin cancer. So they grafted a piece from her ear, put it in her ear, and she used to always say, I can hear you with my nose. Now, Grandma Struss was not warm on most levels. As I got to know her later in my life and took care of her on a certain level, we got to know each other. And I understood where Grandma Peacock Struss was coming from. And you know what? The reason why one of my siblings didn't really care for her, and of course, instead of admitting that Grandma knew her ways all of her life, she spun it that Grandma was vicious and mean, and I couldn't stand her, and therefore none of you should like her either. So the brainwashing started, that people with the forked tongue kind of brainwash the people around them. And in addiction, people kind of, and we might know, mom might be that way, right? Manipulating everyone to believe a certain way, that dad is the problem, or that dad is manipulating everyone to know that, or think that mom's the problem. And that manipulation is going on and the brainwashing is going on because what? We listen to the words. We're conditioned to listen to how people speak rather than look at how people are acting. So when we look at someone like Jussie Smollett, who may or may not have committed the crime, I'm going to go on record saying I think he did it. You know why I think he did it? I think he did it because of his behavior and the fact that he did not really fully cooperate with the police. Right? He didn't turn over his phone records. And then when he did, it was weeks later. And things that have been coming out. Instead of admitting, you know what, I have a drug problem, or I have a problem, because I really feel that he has some kind of a substance abuse issue going on, in addition to his narcissism that he thinks he's more important than everybody else. But in saying that, I think he's also going to walk. For a number of reasons. And I don't think the feds are going to prosecute him because it's too hot. It's too hot for an African-American man to own up to something like that when race issues are so bad, as they say. Now, this is just my personal opinion, and I'm entitled to it. I'm not speaking it as fact. I'm speaking to it from a communicator and also from being a counselor and studying behavior. It just doesn't add up. And then to read about his interview with Robin Robbins. And now here's another sad story. ABC is doing nothing but damage control for Robin. It was okay for Robin Roberts to have the scoop because Jussie, contacted her, or his people contacted her. And the little story that came out is that his public relations people said, don't do the interview. He did it anyway. And the public relations people fired him because there were some holes in his story. So what's the evidence? And again, does the evidence tell the truth? Okay? Does evidence tell the truth, or does evidence taint somebody's own truth when they're full of it? Okay, so Jussie, full of it. That's my nickname for him. And again, I still have empathy for him. I don't hate him. I don't dislike him. And it's not based on race, okay? It's based on his behavior and what he did. And it was wrong. And I don't think he'll ever come out and admit it. Now, I think there's a high probability that he's going to be forced, due to the evidence, to cop to a plea. And I don't know if that's going to include any jail time. Now, when you report a crime and you're a high-profile person and the crime is proven to be false, I really believe you need to be held to a higher standard, just like a police officer needs to be held to a higher standard when he or she commits a crime or is alleged to have committed a crime. If it's proven that a police officer has committed a crime and they're found guilty of it, they need to be punished at a higher level because they have more power than I do. And they also represent what the legal system is supposed to be about, honesty. But it really isn't, right? It's all about who has the most money to put on the best defense and win public perception in their case. All right, now I don't know what's going to happen with R. Kelly. Now I've been watching and I have empathy for him, not because, and I don't support that kind of behavior. I don't at all. But I have empathy for Robert Kelly as a human being in the fact that he has a problem, all right? He has a substance abuse problem. And he's got some other emotional issues and financial issues going. And I'm sure it's a substance abuse issue because why? His home life has been affected, his social life has been affected, his career has been affected, he's been in the legal system with this problem, and his finances. So it tells me that he probably has a substance abuse issue with sex and with polysubstances. Could be medication, could be drugs. Now I'm surmising this only based on what's been presented in public and the fact that he's not accepting any responsibility. Now it's going to be interesting because he doesn't have money, or is looking that he doesn't have money. What's going to happen this time? The other part of the R. Kelly story that really bothers me is when this video came out. Okay, and I've been watching the Lifetime series over the course of the last few nights, trying to come up with my own, I'm not going to say my own take on it. My big question is, where were all the parents in this of these alleged, young ladies, all right, 13, 14, 15? Where are their parents? Why are they out at a public place that an alleged person that, likes to deal with kids? I'm not into that. And anybody that does that kind of stuff, there's something wrong with them on multiple levels. Substance abuse issues are not. But still, here's what it comes back to. Why now? Why now, 11 years later, when people are in their 20s and 30s, are they coming forward telling stories about somebody that they had an intimate relationship with? All right, whatever that relationship involved, was there an agreement to videotape? Was there an agreement to do certain things? Now, I'm not saying that somebody that's 13 or 14 has that maturity to make that choice, all right? But where are the parents? Where were the parents? Was everything good when they wanted their daughter to become successful in the entertainment industry, and at what cost? There's a cost to that. Nothing comes for free. And people prey on weak people, right? So if somebody is in a high power position like R. Kelly was, in the sense, in the hip hop world, the music world, the guy was, a genius and very talented. But it's looking like he used that to do things that were not right, in the sense that, you don't do certain things with people that are underage. And now he's going to be caught fighting that. But why now? Why all of a sudden, 10 years after his criminal case that got thrown out, 21 counts of child pornography, and there's stories going on with that as well. Why 11 years later? Okay, he's ruined financially, and if he did these things, he has to answer for those. And I think he needs to be held to a higher standard because he's in the public eye. All right, you don't get to be in the public eye and then, because let's face it, a lot of those people look down at the everyday folk. But when it comes down to the laws, everyday folks suffer all the time. And yet the people that have the money to mount a good defense don't really have to answer for that. So I think, and they can use what? Race. That this is a hit job on somebody that's African American, who's successful, and blah, 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 blah. Did we see what happened to Bill Cosby as well? And I was talking with somebody about Bill Cosby today, and how upset I was about Bill Cosby's behavior. Because I loved Bill Cosby as a kid. We used to watch Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids every single Saturday. And I also remember watching his show where he was a gym coach and one of the best gym coaches ever. And there was always a lesson. He always taught people a lesson. And it really didn't matter that he was African American or black. It was that he was a regular guy and he related to regular people. And then we find out years later that he was really a monster and kind of a fraud on a certain level. And that's sad, but I still have empathy for him. I have empathy in the sense that he threw it all away. Something's wrong in his life and he needs some kind of help. Now, is Greg going to be the rescuer? No. Is Greg supporting his behavior? No. But I have empathy for him for making a mistake and making bad choices. Doesn't mean that I have sympathy for him. I have empathy. I have compassion that he needs some help, and hopefully he's going to find that help and hopefully be able to make amends to people, which I doubt he will, because a lot of those people never see it. I hope he does, and maybe it'll be reported that he does. I don't know. So anyway, the point in all of this is that when one lie leads us to another lie, leads us to another lie, leads us to another lie, where is the truth? Because if I'm lying to hide the truth, am I really telling the truth? No. And let's face it, truth has nothing to do with race, has nothing to do with racism, it has nothing to do with religion, it has nothing to do with politics. The truth is universal and is only one truth, right? I think it's interesting, and I think it would be a great topic in an ethics class if they're even around anymore. Anyway, when we continue, we'll talk a little bit more about R. Kelly, and then, of course, having empathy for the liar. When the Greg Struss Show continues. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Every Wednesday night, 8 o'clock, Channel 19. And always on youtube.com with the search words Greg Struss. Now, we are rapidly approaching show number 100. I don't know what we're going to do for it. The format changed about a year ago. I'm enjoying it. I'm getting feedback on it. And I don't know, people are like, why aren't you doing a podcast or whatever? I like coming to a studio. I'm a TV guy. That's what I always say. I'm a TV guy. I like television, and I like old-fashioned TV. I like watching TV on TV, but I've kind of been forced to watch it on my computer screen because I'm one of those cord cutters. It just got to be ridiculously expensive, but television is in my heart and soul, and that's why I do it this way, and I appreciate you tuning in. So we're talking about the truth, okay? And I love it because Jesse Smollett, the truth. Watch some of his interviews from a couple years ago. He's sitting there in a hat and having a casual conversation, and he's talking about the truth. I'm just out for the truth. But yet when it comes to telling the truth, I don't think Jesse's telling the truth. That's just my personal opinion. He still is presumed innocent, right? He has the presumption of innocence until his court date. And we have to respect the legal process, but there's nothing wrong, nothing, you hear me? I'm sounding like I'm from the UP in Michigan. Nothing wrong with a personal opinion, because you know what? Everybody's given their personal opinion. Oh, that's irresponsible. No, it isn't. It's my personal opinion. That's it. And I base it on what? I base it on the evidence, but more so the behavior. So let's remove the race, let's remove the religion, let's remove the Chicago police and all the controversies that they've been involved in, and let's look at the truth. The truth is in the evidence, okay? The evidence to me is, why were these two brothers not charged? Why were these two brothers not charged by the Chicago Police Department? Because there's something going on, all right? The next part of that is, why did it take Jesse 40 minutes to report it to the police? Then when the brothers were apprehended at the airport, Jesse did not want to sign complaints because he knew them. So he decided not to. So he didn't think this all the way through. And a lot of narcissists don't think things through because it's all about them. But what would cause somebody to make this kind of decision? I really do believe there's a substance abuse issue there. I do, based on the criteria of substance abuse, right? 5 areas, 2 or more, substance abuse issue. Home life, social life, job, finances, legal. some cases health, and school. He's got more than two, right? So I think in his decision making and his overzealousness that there's something at play here. And this is just my personal and professional opinion as a substance abuse counselor. All right. So is the race issue really real? And I'm not seeing it. Now, does it exist? Absolutely. I worked at a police department. I worked at a police department for 5.5 years. Did I see racism? Absolutely. Did I see sexism? Absolutely. Did I see homophobia? Absolutely. And when I say see it, I heard it. But they were not bad people. They were ignorant on a certain level, okay, because they're in a certain culture. Police are in their own culture. They have a culture. There's a sense of humor in that culture that's probably inappropriate for people to hear. But I'll tell you what, when you're seeing what they see on a daily basis and the kind of behavior they run into, it hardens you and makes you different. But yet we don't have empathy. We don't have empathy for the fact that that police officer is a husband, a wife, a husband or a wife, a mother, a granddaughter, a daughter, an aunt, an uncle, all the roles that each of us play. And at the end of the day, they're going to go home. Now, I remember when Scott was still out here, he's like, oh, well, you know, you talk about the police a lot. But look at what the police do. The police sacrifice their home lives to ensure that we're safe, to ensure that Jussie Smollett's alleged offenders would be caught. And they catch him. Did those detectives get to go home? No, because they worked around the clock. And yeah, they worked for, overtime, but they have a job to do. So we don't get to pick and choose and cherry pick when we want the police or when we're going to like the police for our own benefit. I think we need to be consistent and let's get off this race stuff because I'm not going to buy it anymore. I'm not going to run into somebody that's different than I and look down at them or look differently at them or be scared because of what other people are saying. Not going to happen. And I hope that you do the same thing too. I hope that you give me the same amount of respect as I give you, okay, as I grant you as a human being. Hello, good morning, good evening. I don't care what your politics are. It's none of my business. It's none of my business what your religion is. Because if I'm saying hello to you, it's because I'm going out of my way to show that that I'm different or that I'm not like other people. So I think it's really up to each of us to dispel or put away that racism really exists when it doesn't. It's just my opinion. And I think that if each of us makes that step to show that we're not like a certain stereotype, then we make the world better for ourselves and for others, right? So I've given people rides that are different than me. And I said, pass it on to the next guy because I want to prove to you that not every white man who's over 50 is racist. And I don't know, maybe I go too far with trying to prove that notion. It does exist and I understand it. So I hope that we had a good dialogue tonight in the sense that we understand each other better, where we're coming from. That maybe the world isn't what the media is telling us it is. I think we need to look at our own experiences. And just because we've had some bad experiences, maybe those are meant as teaching moments, all right, in what we're going to do next to make it different. Anyway, you can reach us here at the Greg Struss Show at gstrussman@gmail.com. And love to hear from you. And I appreciate you taking time out to tune in tonight. Greg Struss, thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Goodbye, everybody.